That introduction, here is J.C. Gordon.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is my second time to be speaking here at San Diego Ions Group, and I want to thank you all because every single time I'm here, you make me feel like I'm at home, where it rains 65% of the time. So thank you so much for making me feel so at home. As Beverly mentioned to you, I had rather a unique experience. I was semi-retired at the time. The date was June 25th, 1996. And I had built my own log house. I had put in my own power system. And one day, June 25th, 1996. If you don't mind, I'm going to pick this up because it's just going to give me a chance to move around. It was June 25th, 1996, and I was bucking some wood with a chainsaw, and the chainsaw literally kicked back and went through my throat, and it from my cheekbone all the way down to my collarbone, and I never felt anything. To this day, I've never felt anything because adrenaline kicks in to protect you, and that's certainly what happened to me. But how many here have had an experience in their life that has changed them forever? Well, that was mine. That was mine. And as Beverly said, I thought that the reason for living was to make money, is to make as much money as possible. And prior to that, that's what I was doing in my banking and as a financial analyst. I managed several $100 million of my clients' funds and just made money for them. And but when you have a near-death experience, you don't take any of that with you. You don't take your body. You don't take any clothes. You don't take your car. You don't take your bank account. You don't take your house. The only thing that moves or transitions from the now of time to the afterlife of timelessness, and I'm going to get into those two in a moment because I'm going to share with you today how, if you feel compelled, you can become one as the universal mind consciousness, which was why I was sent back, and I'll get into that in a moment. But when the chainsaw kicked back and went through my throat, the chainsaw was still on, and it hung up on a sweatshirt that I had. It was still on, and if anybody anybody's familiar with chainsaws, they have a red kill switch at the end of it. And my chainsaw was so old that 19 times out of 20, it didn't turn off. But I called a gentleman over. I had a Korean fellow working, a couple of people working for me, and this gentleman was Korean. This was just before the 1996 Olympics, and I swear he could have won the 100-yard dash with his boots on and running through the mud and seeing me just stranded there. But he said, what to do? And I said, well, turn it off. So before he turned it off, with the chainsaw still on me, I intuitively heard a voice, and that voice said to me, everything's going to be okay. I have a purpose for your life. And 911 was called as a result of that accident. I was living in a remote establishment in British Columbia called Bella Coola, which had still has about 3,000 people living there. Bella Coola is a native word that means beautiful valley. It's just so pristine there, and half of the people living there were native Indians. There's only one highway, one roadway in the Bella Coola Valley, and Steve was driving me in his truck, and we noticed about halfway down, about 20 minutes in, the ambulance was coming the other way. And so Steve waved the ambulance over, pulled over to the side, and said to me, stay there. I'm going to go talk to the ambulance attendants. Well, if anybody knows me, you don't tell me to stay there. Of course, I got out. I walked to the end of the ambulance, and the ambulance attendant, who I found out later was a week away from retirement, when she saw me, her eyes just became saucers. They just expanded, and she goes, what are you doing? And I said, well, I want to go to the hospital. Can you take me to the hospital? She says, get in. And so I got in, and it was 20 minutes into the hospital. And the hospital was just an outpost. There was 3 medical doctors working, and one of them was away on vacation. I'll tell you about that in a moment. She asked me 8 times during that 20 minutes what my name was, because she feared that I was going to pass out and die on her. Well, she wheeled me into the emergency room, and it was about 15 minutes when I was on the emergency room table that I did pass out and die. And Margaret, just like, we're looking here like this. The physician was about 18 inches away from me. The nurse on my right about 18 inches away from me. Then instantly, all of a sudden, I'm at the top of the room. And I'm looking down at the backs of their heads. I'm looking down at my throat for the first time, seeing it. It was like a raw piece of steak, just open and blood everywhere. And then the next second, I'm no longer in time. I'm moving through an element of darkness. It was like I was in an old rickety elevator, and it was kind of moving like this. I knew that I was moving up, and what I was doing was I was moving through the second aspect of, or the void of darkness, which connects time and timeless. I was moving through that, and as I was moving through it, I remember looking up, and I saw this twinkling light. You know, like a star that comes, the first star you see at night, it kind of like twinkles, and then all of a sudden gets brighter. Well, that's what it was doing for me. It was getting brighter and brighter and brighter until it became an all-encompassing white light, and I went through it. And if anybody is ever worried about death, you have no fear. Because what is on the other side was exactly what I felt. It was exactly what every spirit is. It's the essence of who we are, our life force, which are DNA threads of the universal mind. Unconditional love was what was felt. And I remember I landed on this mountain, and I said, oh, I'm home. You know, I just said to myself, I'm just home. And I didn't have any body. I didn't have anything. It was just your spirit, just your life force that moves and transitions between time and timelessness. I'll get into the differences between the two in a moment. But while I was over there, I sensed just a little touching where my left elbow was, but I didn't have any body, and I was impressed to follow that. And what it did was it led me down the side of a mountain and across a field, and I moved at about a 1 o'clock direction. And I remember as I was moving in that direction, I saw in the distance a structure appeared, and that structure was circular. It had a fence around the outside of it, and as I went and approached the property, the fence doors just opened up, just not forwards but backwards, and I just entered in. I went down the path. I moved towards the structure. As I got close to the structure, again, the doors just opened up. Now, I want to say about near-death experiences in Beverly. By the way, how many people in here have had a near-death experience? Okay, great. So about 25% of us here. They're always different. Everybody's near-death experience is different for one reason, and that one reason is to help us as individuals to get on with what our true life purpose is. Okay, most of the time they're positive, but that's why near-death experiences happen, to help us when we come back to get on to the reason why we're here. So that's why I was having my near-death experience, and that's why everybody has their near-death experience. But where I went was as I moved towards the structure, again, the doors kind of just opened up. And as they opened up, I moved to the right, and I was impressed to move up the stairs. There was a hallway, so I'm moving up the stairs, and now I'm going to move down this hallway. And there were 3 rooms. The first room on the right, I looked into it, and it was like a round circular library. And there were no books, but there were kind of like CD sleeves that were kind of moving in and out. And I'll tell you what that was in a moment as I go on. The second room was on the left. There were 4 human-like entities. They were sitting in a lotus position at 12, 3, 6, and 9. They had kind of hoodies on. They never looked up at me. I just went past them. But it was a third room on the right-hand side that I went into. And when I went into that room, it was just completely pitch black. Just completely pitch black. I didn't see it, but I sensed that the door closed behind me. And while I was there, just looking into the darkness, individual lights started to appear. The first one was at like 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 7, 9, and 11 o'clock. And out of these points, they were violet in color, and out of these points came, like, I call it an energy thread. It was, and they connected with each other. And what that was being revealed to me at that time was the universal mind, was the universal consciousness and its totality. And it went on to reveal to me its perspective as to why life is. Is everybody following me? Is everybody with me so far? Okay. Because the Akashic Records was the first room I saw on the right, yes. I believe it was, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The universal mind started communicating to me telepathically. It was like lightning zings that hit me right in the middle of the third eye. They were. I call them violet zings in my earlier books. But every time it hit me, I knew what it was saying. I would communicate back to it the same way, through violet zings. And very shortly after that, it revealed to me in the middle of it a circle. A circle. And at that point, I was revealed that the universal mind is asexual. The universal mind is both male qualities and female qualities. What was being communicated to me was the male consciousness qualities. And what that circle represented, and I'll get into the specifics of it in a moment here. Hopefully, I'm just looking for the remote. I don't know where I put it. But anyways, it's over there. Thank you. The circle that was in the middle was the female aspect of the universal mind consciousness, which was its womb. Okay? And it impressed me to follow it as we moved within that womb. Is everybody with me so far? So where it took me, where the universal mind took me, was within itself. Where I ended up was in the pre-planning stages of time. I was literally in the events that happened before time began. And I'll get into that in a minute as to how those events came about and what happened there. But let me just... So, universal mind consciousness is both a male and female aspect. The big circle, I don't know if everybody can see that clearly or not, represents the male aspect of universal mind consciousness, which is its great thought of everything. So, in other words, the initial great thought of everything existed before even the events that I went into, which were the pre-planning stages of time, even before time began, which as science says was 13.75 billion years ago. Religious books say in the beginning. It's the same moment when time began. It's the initial spark of energy in life, and I'll get into that in a moment. But what the male aspect of the universal mind consciousness is timelessness. Timelessness. The great thought of everything is the great thought of everything, which is a timelessness reality. And everything within timelessness is predestined. In other words, nothing happens by chance. It is an unconditional love and an absolute eternal abundance. And I also want to say that my near-death experience happened over 22 years ago. But last week at the LA Consciousness Life Expo was my coming out party. It was when I started to reveal this for the first time. And even Beverly, when I was here last year, I had the picture, but there were a couple pieces of it missing that are now in place. And what those couple pieces were that I hope I now am enunciating to you, and as I'm speaking to you, I'm speaking to your spirit, not your mind, is going to help awaken you, to awaken you into the next level. But in the female aspect, which is the womb of the universal mind, is where time exists. Okay, we live in time. What I realized during my near-death experience is that this universe that we know as everythingness, right, is really only one cell of hundreds of trillions of cells that make up the universal mind fetus that was conceived and has gestated over the past 13.75 billion years to the point where it's about ready to birth itself, and I'll move into that. So that's what time is, and that's where we live from a consciousness perspective until now. But is everybody with me on that? Before I move on, does anybody have any questions? Pardon me? Okay. The universal mind is asexual, both male and female. The male aspect of the universal mind consciousness is its great thought of everythingness, that it was the initial great thought, where everything in it is predestined from way before the beginning of time, way before I went with the pre-time planning stages of times. Everything was predestined, and everything is, and everything has already happened. That's what that is. The female aspect of the universal mind consciousness is its womb, where it conceived its universal mind fetus. As science says, if they want to quantify it, 13.75 billion years ago in what science calls the Big Bang. What religious books call in the beginning. Okay? It's the same event. It's the same event that was the spark of time. And that's what universal mind consciousness is. Is that clear now? Okay, good. And what I found, what the great thought is a supercomputer. It is literally a supercomputer where everything is predestined. Include not only every action, but every thought. And what I'm going to be saying to you today is a lot of concepts, a lot of things that you've never heard before, because as I said, our coming out party with this whole concept was last week, after 22 years of R&D for myself to be able to put it all together. But the universal mind supercomputer, and I know it could read USMC, but it's really UMSC. The universal mind supercomputer works the same way as any other computer, and this is how the great thought works, is that when a consciousness frequency is released, it represents the input or the keystroking in the universal mind supercomputer. Is everybody following that so far? And when that frequency goes into the universal mind supercomputer, it brings forth a predestined action. If everybody's following me there. Nothing happens by chance. Everything that has happened in the past, is happening right now, and will happen in the future, has all been predestined by the great thought. It's all been predestined. Is everybody with me on that so far?
Well, I think the word predestined should be defined a little bit better. When you say predestined, do you mean it was planned that way, or it was just known? What is going to happen is known.
Planned. Everything that has happened has been planned to happen exactly the same way it has happened. May I suggest that you move your consciousness perspective of that out of the limitations of mind consciousness and into the infiniteness of our heart consciousness and timelessness, what it is. Remember, everything that I'm saying is I'm coming to you from the perspective of the universal mind that it was revealed to me. When we come through things, it's kind of like a bottom-up perspective. I'm coming at things from a top-down perspective for you right now. Is there another question here? Right.
Whether it's female energy or male energy, it doesn't make a difference because it's all the program.
From a universal mind perspective, great thought. Everything is, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. Everything is pre-programmed. And we as individuals, and I'm going to kind of jump around a bit here because I'm feeling how you guys are talking and where you're going, and I'm just going to move with you. But we as individuals have spirits. Is everybody aware of that? And our spirits are an energy. And science has confirmed that energy never dies, right? Our spirits never die. Our spirits, and when I had my near-death experience, I was literally taken to being inside of the in the beginning, or inside of the Big Bang, at the very first seconds of that initial spark. And at the second of that initial spark, the universal mind that at this time had morphed into a figure, a recognizable figure in the classroom, divided itself into billions of individual particles and gave them into the female archangel that it had created to hold on to. But those individual particles are our spirits. Okay? Those individual particles are our spirits. That's why our spirit never dies, because our spirits are God. Our spirits are source. Okay? And every time a spirit has moved from the now to the afterlife or into timelessness, it has taken, initially it came in with a life experience. Every life experience has the amount of breath it's going to breathe. Every life experience has its purpose. And when that's done, it has taken the soul back and moved it into the Akashic records, into that move. And that's when I went past that room, what I was hearing was those spirits dropping souls off and taking the new one to come down to form the life experience. Okay? But the Universal Mind supercomputer has completed this little drawing of us. It just has. It's all predestined. But what makes that move the way that the universal mind consciousness ultimately intends to or not is what our consciousness is. Now, as individuals, we have two types of consciousness. We have a mind consciousness, which resonates with the beta frequencies, the external beta frequencies, that if we look around here, this is what we're resonating to. This is what our consciousness is, right? This is what our mind consciousness is. But we also have a heart consciousness. And I'm sure you're all aware with some of the aspects of our heart consciousness. Margaret's went head up and down. Our heart consciousness provides us and communicates to us through aspects of such as intuition, such as imagination, such as insights, such as hope, such as love, right? Love does not come from, I did not meet my soulmate from a textbook on page 333. It comes from here. And that is where the universal mind communicates to us. Margaret, you and I were talking about this earlier, about going inside, because that's where truth is. Truth lies within. But is everybody clear on the universal mind supercomputer? Can I move on?
With one question. This originally you spoke about before the moment that the divine.
Yes, I was there. Yeah, yes, I was there. When I went into the room, the universal mind revealed himself in that energetic form with the 6 dots, and it would communicate with me with like lightning bolts that would kind of hit me here, and I knew what it was saying. It also revealed within its consciousness its female womb, and it asked me to follow it, and we went in that female womb. And where it took me was to this black point right here, which I call pre-time. That's where my near-death experience took me. During my near-death experience down here in time, I was only dead 2 to 3 minutes, but it was like months and months and months that I was up there in timelessness. So my near-death experience took me to the events in the great thought, right, of consciousness that happened before time began. Is that clear now? Is that okay? Good. Okay. Can I move on, Margaret?
I just have a question. When you say, everything is already pre-designed, so do you think that humanity at some point will have the consciousness to know when you come in what lies ahead of you?
Absolutely. That's why it came back. Did everyone hear Margaret's question there? Margaret asked, will mankind have the availability of the consciousness to move on? And the answer is yes. But remember what the universal mind is. The universal mind is unconditional love. And this aspect that I'm going to say to you now always blows me away, because the essence of the universal mind's unconditional love in its great thought of everythingness that will play itself out to the universal mind supercomputer is that it left it to us to individually choose what's right for us in that outcome. And I'm going to get into that in a moment to show all of that. But yes, absolutely.
Is that considered free will? I was going to ask, is there free will in this?
Absolutely. That is free will. That is free. It's our choice. Remember, everything is predestined. Whatever we choose in our mind consciousness, if we stay in mind consciousness, I call that listening to the AM dial of news, right? AM news results are going to happen. But when we move into our heart consciousness, within ourselves, communicating directly with the universal mind consciousness, we become one in the totality of universal mind consciousness. But it's our choice. It's your choice what you want to do. And the beauty of it is, whatever you do is right.
Did our free will, was it our free will or the pre-planning that elected Donald Trump?
Nothing happens by chance.
So
Nothing happens by chance.
Our free will had no effect on the election.
What's that?
Our free will really had no effect.
Well, from a universe, again, I'm presenting everything to you from the perspective that it was downloaded to me from the universal mind perspective. And may I suggest that to answer that specific question, you know the answer to that if you go within. And that answer is there. But everything that happened has happened because it was supposed to happen. Everything, including that event.
Well, why, and who's making that judgment? Shouldn't we be making that judgment that it was supposed to happen, or should it happen?
Well, look at this diagram and where we're at. We're down here in time. This universe is one cell of hundreds of trillions in the universal mind fetus that has grown from its conceptual stage into its full term stage and ready to give birth. Okay? And so we are one small speck within that. Okay? And from a universal consciousness perspective, the great thought of everything that has happened in the universal mind fetus has meant to gestate it and get it ready for birth, including the events that you talk about. Nothing that's going on in this world has happened by chance from the universal mind's perspective. And as Margaret so brilliantly added today, is there something that we can do to it? Yes, there is. There is. We can choose, and I know I'm jumping around, but I'm jumping around to stay with you through the questions that you're asking. Okay, we can choose to either remain as is in the limitations of mind consciousness, or move into the essence of heart consciousness. I like to use a little analogy of that, of we can stay listening to the AM news station, or we can move into our FM perfect radio station of perfection. Okay, but it's our choice. Okay, Amy. Well, we sleep, right? It's just part of the what goes on when we sleep has nothing to do with any changes in the universal mind consciousness. It really has nothing to do with anything that even goes on in the womb. But what I can say is that this universe that we know, we are the lead cell. We are actually the lead cell. We, from a spirit perspective and from a soul perspective, we are living in every other universe at the same time. Not only our spirit is living in every other universe at the same time, our souls are living in every other universe at the same time. And I'm just going to move on here because the Google of atoms that are from within us all, from within the center of the earth to the edge of the universe, which, as science says, at the speed of light would take 46 billion light years to travel to. That is our universe. That Hubble has said is made up of millions and millions of galaxies. That is our universe. Okay, does that mean? Our universe, the size, the magnitude that we believe our universe is, represents only one cell of hundreds of trillions, and science calls it parallel universes, that make up the totality. Yes, I don't know that. I don't know that because my near-death experience only showed me the universal mind consciousness. It only showed me what the spirit does in the souls. But basically what happens is every time a spirit comes into the now, it comes into the now with every aspect of our soul that it's supposed to be in whatever universe. Okay, and when it's over with, it all moves back and is put into the Akashic records. Okay, this is kind of quantum, but not a finite, an infinite quantum. So I'm touching on some terms that may be new to you. So please ask me some questions. And the beauty of it, in the great thought, right? It's all done. It's all done, and I'm going to show you exactly where we're at right now. This is my simplification of what is happening in there. And I call it the clock of time. Okay. The clock of time starts at 12. And when we move in a forward velocity perspective, it begins at the Big Bang or in the beginning. Okay. And where it ends is at the birth. Okay, so time in the womb of the universal mind, or the female aspect of the universal mind. How did that get bigger? What is that? Is that? Okay. Is that? Thank you. So time has moved in a forward velocity. Forward velocity perspective, and where we are at right now is we are at the 6 o'clock moment in the clock of time, where now is really the time of transformation. Okay, we have an opportunity to make a consciousness choice, and I'm going to get into the specifics of this in a moment. And the essence of that conscious choice is, what consciousness are we going to listen to? Our mind consciousness or heart consciousness? Are we going to allow things to ultimately die, or are we going to ultimately to be reborn? And I'm going to get into the specificness of this. But this aspect right here, and thank you so much for enlarging that, this aspect from the clock moving in a forward velocity or in a clockwise motion from the 12 o'clock down to the 6 o'clock is, as science said, taken 13.75 billion years to get to that point. In other words, what has happened in the womb over that 13.75 billion years is the universal mind fetus has not only conceived, it has gestated itself to its full growth stage and ready to birth itself. This is where we're at. Thank you so much. This is where we're at right now. And when I was in my near-death experience, I went into that classroom. It was like my grade 12 homeroom chemistry lab. That's exactly what it was. And when I went in the back of it, there were two empty desks. Universal mind was still in that energetic form. It zinged me and said, I'm going to morph into a more recognizable form, and it was kind of like a fish-like form. Out of that fish-like form, it created its two helpers that sat in that desk. And I saw them just pulled out of the universal mind consciousness. Those two helpers were both male and female. They were universal mind consciousness archangels to help create the universal mind fetus and complete the universal mind fetus until it's born. The female was given the name Lucy. The male was given the name Lucifer. Okay? And for 13.72 billion years, Lucy held on to the individual spirits while Lucifer completed the gestation of the universal mind fetus, from that initial spark at the Big Bang to the Google amount of atoms that our universe represents now, and every other universe. And Lucy began her mission to complete the universal mind fetus approximately 3.2 million years ago. Is anybody aware of what the name Lucy means to science? The first human bones, exactly. In Ethiopia, the bones of the first human form is called Lucy. And so when the two archangels were created and made in the pre-timing stage that I saw, and I was like a fly on the back of the wall watching all this happen, they were made to help the universal mind complete its fetus. And its fetus is both a physical form, which this universe is one cell of hundreds of trillions of cells, but it is also a personality and identity. Think of how you would be if you had no personality and identity, right? Those two aspects makes us whole. Lucifer's role was to complete the gestation of the universal mind fetus. Lucy's role was to complete the personality and identity of the universal mind fetus so that the two can merge together and be birthed. Does that make sense? Okay. This is where we're at right now. We are at this point in time right now where the forward velocity has come to this point. Again, this is a concept that you haven't heard before. But at the same time, from the universal mind perspective, as he was creating the universal mind fetus in the forward moving aspect, it was also doing it in a reverse velocity aspect. Does anybody know, and this is a science question, does anybody know what reverse velocity is? Let me give you an illustration. Let's say my wife and I are fortunate enough to be staying at Bill and Belinda's home, and last night we had some wine. So we had these glasses of wine. But what would have happened if we dropped that wine on Bill's floor? He would be very upset at us, for sure, one thing. But that wine glass would have shattered, right? And the wine would have spilt everywhere, right? What reverse velocity is the ability, through velocities, just reversing the velocities, to take that spilt wine, to take that broken glass, and make it whole. Okay, so that at the same time as the universal mind consciousness with Lucy and Lucifer, we're completing the universal mind fetus in forward velocity. The universal mind was completing the reverse velocities flow as well. In other words, where we're all at right now is we are that spilt wine in that broken wine glass. And by accessing our reverse velocity flow, we make ourselves whole. We complete the process of becoming the universal mind in its totality. Okay, is everybody following, Bill? Well, remember, nothing happens by chance. Nothing happens by chance. And including all the gory incidents that happen in life. It all has happened by chance. And that's a great question. And that was actually going to lead into where I was going next. Because, again, I saw this during my near-death experience. When Lucifer had completed his work of completing the universal mind fetus, okay, in its hundreds of trillions of cells, getting the universal mind fetus to the point where it could be birthed, that's when Lucy started her work, which goes back to the 3.2 million years ago. From 3.2 million years ago until now, Lucifer's work was done. Lucifer, again, what I saw in my near-death experience, Lucifer was not satisfied with being number, and I'm giving you the big picture answer to all this to answer that question. Lucifer was not satisfied with being number 2. Lucifer wanted to be number 1. But again, remember, all this is predestined. All this was predestined, what happened. And what I saw in the garden 6,000 years ago was the first 2 consciousness human beings deceived. And religious books call that the moment of Eden. Okay, that's what I saw, and what Lucifer did at that point. And when I saw Lucifer and Lucy in the classroom, Lucifer, the male figure, was about 14 years old, approximately, and Lucy was about 12 years old. But when I saw Lucifer at this point in the garden, he was aged and haggard, because Lucifer was not aware of what Lucy would have been doing with spirits, and knew that to become the personality and identity of the soon-to-be birthed universal mind fetus, he had to become the spirit. And Bill, that's what's happened over the past 6,000 years, because Lucifer implanted the ego chip and has done so in every other human being ever since. And that ego chip stands for edging our greatness out by edging God out. Okay, that's what has happened. He has controlled the whole game through his drug. And we're all addicted to it. We're all addicted to the Luciferian drug. Does anybody know what drug I'm talking about? Money. Absolutely. And so So, Bill, events like that, and I actually refer to it as the great extortion that's happening in life. Events like that have purposely happened because they've been triggered by the Luciferian force, the dark force, to ultimately kill off all of our spirits. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen in 10, 15 years down the road, but that's why all of that happened. In other words, the Luciferian force basically own all of something called central banks that are privately owned. And does anybody know what a central bank is? Okay, a central bank, lots of heads nodding up. I'm going to give you the Coles Notes version. Central banks are privately owned institutions by just a few families in the world own the central banks. And Beverly, let's say that you own the Fed. And Margaret was in a situation where you needed to keystroke $8-10 trillion into her account. You could do that. You could do that. And you would not have to tell anybody about it. Okay? That's how central banks work. They fund governments who have the military protection, have the multinational corporations, and I'm going to get into that. That's the ego that edges her greatness out. This is the great extortion, and this is what I'm kind of telling us about. Have anybody seen the movie The Wizard of Oz? Okay, and you remember when the curtains pulled away? Okay, this right here represents what's happening behind the scenes with the curtain being pulled away. Luciferian forces are directly communicating with those that own central banks. Okay? And following that game plan to steal away every soul. Not every soul, but every spirit, so that Lucifer can become the personality and identity of the soon-to-be birthed universal mind fetus. And I'm going to get into when that's going to happen as well. Just a second, if I could just finish this thought. So right here is what's happening behind the scenes, okay, with the central bankers. Now, central bankers control all the governments, right? Because they are following the Luciferian agenda to complete this process, okay? And really, and again, I hope I don't step on any toes by saying this. I'm from another country. I live in Canada. But governments all over the world are nothing more than money collectors. That's all they are, is money collectors. And why they're doing what they're doing is so that they can have these massive politician pensions, right? That's why they're doing what they're doing, right? That's what's going on behind the game right now. And if I could just maybe lower this a bit, please. Over here, if I could, yeah. What's going on is this great distraction right here. And somebody asked about your president, right? Is right in here. It's this great distraction that's going on that hooks us in our mind consciousness to only see this going on, to only see what you were talking about with the results of your election, to see the promises that all the politicians are doing and sucking us into what I call the squeeze, to take more and more of what we need to survive away from us in the form of taxes, in the form of a justice system that is far from being justice. But the top aspect of that, I believe, is the most significant aspect of its whole system, and that is the money laundering. Because there are no bigger money launderers on this planet than the central banks and the governments. Just as Beverly did to Margaret a few minutes ago and put $8 trillion into her bank account. Right? That's the type of money line we know nothing about. But that's what's going on behind the scenes. And what it's doing to us is it's bringing us through this treadmill, kicking us out with aging. We age, we become diseased, we become stressed, and ultimately, this is where we're at. We're falling out. And if I could just roll it up a little bit, this is where we are right now. We're all on this heap. That's where mankind is at right now. But it is all been planned and orchestrated by the Luciferian forces, including, Bill, what you said about the Holocaust, which all part of this plan. All part of this plan. And that is what the dark force, Lucifer, has planned and schemed to do to become the personality and identity of the universal mind consciousness. We as mankind are right now at a point in time where we can either accept to allow the great extortion to continue or to become one with the great thought. And this is the consciousness grid that the Luciferian system has set up. It all comes from money. Money is its drug. Money is its drug that controls everything. It has an upward flow that I call is the soul attack. It is through its ego that edges our greatness out, that edges God out, with an ultimate goal to eliminate all spirits, to eliminate all of our life forces, to eliminate God from the equation. And if we could just go the other way. Did I do that? Oops. Okay. It also has a soulless fortress in place. That is a defense system that is, quite frankly, second. If we stay in mind consciousness, it is absolutely impenetrable. And what that defense system is made up of governments, military, and multinational corporations. That's a three-pronged defense system. But it's the house of cards that the Luciferian forces have set up that is about to crumble. And again, you were talking about your present presidents. That is made up of debt, civil unrest, and global disorder. And we are passive-aggressive. Mankind is passive-aggressive. That's the personality of us all. And the Dark Forces knows that. The Dark Forces knows that if and when we stay in mind consciousness, there's only one way that we can rebel. And it started happening about 17 weeks ago in France. Is anybody familiar with the Yellow Vest movement? Okay, France is the most taxed nation in the world. They are waking up to the fact that something's not right, right? Something is off here. Now, they are going about it in a civil unrest way, but if I could just move that up a bit, thank you. Lucifer's trigger point, and this is the essence of the Luciferian Dark Force plan for the last 6,000 years, is to topple its house of cards and create mass hysteria on every street corner in the world. Global chaos will be created on every street corner, forcing Lucifer's defense system to basically imprison mankind. Now, again, I'm going to say something. Can I just one thing, and then I'll ask you. I'm not from your country, but from a universal mind consciousness perspective, the wall, you guys all know what wall I'm talking about here, is not being built to keep people out. It's being built to keep you in. And if we as a species do not wake up and move out of our AM news dial of mind consciousness and become one with the totality of the universal mind and heart consciousness, that will happen. That will happen. Oh, I'm going the wrong way here.
So when you on that slide, where was Lucy?
Lucy came in, this was 6,000 years ago. Lucy came in about there, 3.2 million years ago. And when mankind first, when man was first created, and the bones of Lucy in Ethiopia are that point. There were two, in my previous book I wrote about that there were two periods of mankind. One was a survivalist man and one was a consciousness man. The survivalist man, which started 3.2 million years ago, was meant to perfect the bodies of mankind. It moved us from tree dwellers to upright walkers. When that was perfected, basically then the second aspect of the perfection of consciousness began, which was 6,000 years ago. And that was when Lucifer, for that 3.2 million years ago, made his scheme to do what he's doing right now. So.
Well, if you mentioned the origin, almost the origin of man, is it true that is Zechariah Sitchin right that the aliens or Anunnaki helped put man together?
I don't know anything about that, so I can't comment on that. I'm coming at everything from what I know and how I was downloaded during my near-death experience. I can't comment on that because I know nothing about that. Sorry. Oh, I'm glad you're here. Yes.
I was just wondering about what the projected December 21st,
2082?
is it 2082?
I'm actually going to get into that page. That's a good lead-in.
I just was thinking, okay, it's projected, and I'm going, okay, it's like we all, it's like the Tower of Babel. We all have our own interpretations about it.
Right,
so
right.
It's like, how do I explain to you what I'm saying? I don't like to say it in the way I'm saying it.
That's and that is the.
And I'm going, okay, what is it? December 21st, blah, 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 blah. So
I'm about to tell you that. That's great. Maybe you should be up here and help me present. That was great. That was excellent. Because if I just kind of shrink this down so that we can see the whole screen again. Yeah, great. There's basically two streams of consciousness that we can choose. We can and I have the periods broken down to 2019 to 2031 and 2032, and then the date when the birthing of the universal mind fetus. And I was shown the exact second during my near-death experience of December 21st, 2082 at 11:11:11 GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. That's the exact second when the birthing begins. But if we stay in the Great Extortion for the next 12 years, we will stay in mind consciousness. If we stay in mind consciousness, thank you, we will continue the extortion. If we continue the extortion, we will extend our monetary limitations. And make no mistake that governments are collecting money not in the form of necessarily raising existing taxes, but coming up with new ones. The Netflix tax, in your country, 30, 40 years ago, you had an event that happened that has cost last year cost in excess of 50,000 elderly individuals their homes. Okay, when parents co-signed for student loans, and those student loans were not able to be paid back, the bankers are right there to take your home away. Okay, Texas, again, last year had in excess of 50,000 cars taken away from the rightful owner because they had parking tickets. Okay, and the system is set up in a way that issues like Peoria, Illinois, I remember reading recently that they have a new tax just because you live in Peoria, Illinois. Okay, so be thankful you don't live there.
But we have a girl from New Zealand.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for coming.
Yeah,
And if you want to fill that out, please do. Okay, thank you. And my wife is right back there, and she could take that. Thanks for coming. Appreciate that. So, thank you.
I want to say thank you for your time and your effort for being here.
Oh, thank you.
And,
Thank you. Thank you.
explain everything.
Thank you. Well, this is my coming out party. It's been 22 years that it took me to get to this point, and thank you everybody for being here. Thank you. Asha. I am. I'm going to talk a lot more, but I don't want to go too quickly here. I want to make sure that, yeah. This is all in my latest book. Okay, Asha, Amy, sorry, Amy. Sorry, I'm sorry.
I saw him on YouTube. You have several nice interviews, and they're really well done. I mean, I love the enthusiasm and the grace you give what you've been through.
Thank you.
And I really think it's way different from this, but I think it's so important for anyone to listen to.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's
And I'm going to have a few more coming out now. I've purposely not done anything. I've never been on Facebook. I never wanted to. The only thing I really ever did was during his 22 years, I went on Twitter, and at the peak of my Twitterdom, I had like 220,000 followers, and everybody was DMing me with questions, and I was answering them, and it just exhausted me. So I haven't even tweeted in a year, and now I'm down to about 30,000 followers. But I am now coming out, and unfortunately, social media is maybe an avenue for me to help get the message out. But thank you. Sorry, Margaret.
Would you please give us your definition of spirit and soul?
Oh, I'd love to. Margaret asked a question to give me the definition of spirit and soul, and I'm going to tell it to you as I am telling everything from the perspective that it was downloaded to me. Remember, I grew up a banker, so none of that meant anything to me until I died. But spirit is an energy DNA fragment of source, which at the very essence we all are. We are all related as one because we are all an energy DNA source of a DNA fragment of source. Souls are individual life experiences that come in with the spirit with a predestined life purpose and number of breaths. They come in and they enter a predestined female terminus. All of this is predetermined, and create ovulation. Okay, so the soul comes in and creates the female ovulation. And if conception is allowed to happen during that period of time, based upon the soul's life purpose, then that will happen. If not, conception will not happen. In this particular case, if after ovulation the conception has not occurred, the soul goes back, and the spirit brings down another soul, and that same process is done. But if conception happens, that is a life experience of an individual. Like right now, we are all made up of 4 components: a spirit, a soul, a body, and a consciousness. Okay, spirit is eternal because we are all God at the essence, but souls are all predetermined. And right now, if I may extend on that, Margaret, there are 2 types of souls on the planet. There are souls that are final life experience souls, and there are souls that are non-final life experience souls. If I was to say this message to a non-final life experience souls, they think I would be talking gobbledygook. They would have no idea what I'm talking about because they're coming at it from a mind consciousness perspective, and I'm speaking to your spirit. Okay? Maybe even a little bit of a rippling up or bubbling up is happening when I'm speaking to your spirit. That's what I'm hoping to achieve to help you awaken. But has that answered that, Margaret? Okay, now Ash, I'll get back to this. Okay, sorry, one.
The second room that you passed before, like, balance and health, did you ever go in that room?
I didn't go into it, but when I do the work that I do, and I'll get into that a little bit at the end, I have had clients that have gone into it. Yeah, I have had clients that go into it. And what it is, if you can remember that reverse velocity flow, taking that broken wine glass, spilt wine, and making it whole, it comes through from there. It comes through from there. And I'm going to tell you one quick experience of a client who was in there recently. When they were in there, they actually became a 5th member of that group. And what happened was the 5 were telepathically communicating and connecting in the middle. And the things that were coming out of there were just profound, right? And everybody, you're welcome. Everybody has a predestined reverse velocity flow that is different to every single one of us. But the totality of all of those reverse velocity flows equals the totality of the universal mind's unconditional love, if that makes sense. So that as we move from that 6 to 12 o'clock, that's what's kind of going to happen. Okay, now I'm going to go. Okay, any other questions before I go there?
In these states and the mind consciousness, etc., does this correlate in any way with what I've been hearing, that we are moving into the 4th dimension spiritually?
Yes, but I wouldn't say it is directly that. Can I tell you my interpretation of the dimensions? 1D is individuals that I would call first-time souls that remain in the realm of physicality, that have no empathy for anybody. They're your sociopaths, your psychopaths, okay? 2D realm world is the mental element that's involved. The 3D realm is the emotional aspect. The 4D realm, again, from the perspective that I was made aware of it, the 4D realm is those that are in a spiritual aspect, or have a spiritual component to life, that peak in the aspect of time in the 5D realm, which is absolute enlightenment, or a complete balance of all of them. The 6th through 10th D realms are once we leave our body, like what Beverly and anybody else who's had an NDE has had. The 6D realms are the 6th dimension of life, is when a spirit leaves the body and is at the top of the emergency room looking down. The 7th dimension is that speed of light, 46 billion light years from here to the edge of the universe. The 8th D realm is when you go through the light. The 9th D realm takes you into the at 1 mid of the home of the universal mind. And the 10th dimensional at 1 mid is when we become universal mind in its totality, when our spirits literally dock and become one again with the universal mind. Think of what happens with spirits as an accordion. They were together at the second of the Big Bang. They separated, and in the great thought of everything, if we so choose it, they can all come back together again and be one as the universal mind. It's individual choice. It's the beauty of free will. You choose it. You choose it when it's right for you. And I'll get into that. If I may just get into that, because it's okay. So if we follow the Great Extortion, it's going to extend the monetary restrictions, and it's only going to continue what has been predestined for mankind when our thoughts send out the frequency into the universal mind supercomputer from mind consciousness. And that is aging, death, and disease. That can only lead to anything that the mind consciousness can understand happening, which is the revolution, which is now starting to happen in France with the Yellow Vest movement. On the other side, if I could get that to move over here, thank you very much, you can choose to be one with the great thought of that timelessness of everything, which simply means moving to heart consciousness, moving out of the AM frequency dial of consciousness in the mind into the FM, into your FM dial of your heart consciousness. Okay, truth lies within. Right, truth lies within, and what that will do is it will unravel the extortion. It will unleash monetary freedom for all of mankind. It will unleash our agelessness, our wellness, and our immortality. And a couple personal stories on that. When I died, when I was 38, my biological age was well in advance of 50. As I was saying to you yesterday, Asha, I used to have to drink 3 cups of coffee just to get rid of all the pains, because I was probably 55 years old biologically, chronologically 38, biologically 55. I'm now 61 chronologically, but my biological age is that of a 30-year-old. In other words, as I've chronologically aged, I've biologically reduced. When I take people over to the other side and into the afterlife, 70% of the time they meet a gatekeeper. They always meet a gatekeeper, but 70% of the time it is someone who has been energetically connected in their lives. Could be, I've had grandmothers, I've had spouses, I've had ex-spouses, I've had children. But even though grandma may have died when the person I'm working with was 5, grandma appears between the ages of 18 and 22. That is the perfected age of us. That is the age when athletes are in their prime form, right? That's the ideal age that we can all biologically move into. And I could go on to many stories of wellness, but one gentleman had 2 weeks to live. San Francisco had a form of cancer that was 6.5 years ago. He's now still alive. I talked to him about 3 or 4 months ago, and he said, I really don't care what happens with my life now because I got to see my grandsons for an extra 6.5 years, right? I watched them grow, and I'm happy with that. But again, what we move into is the perfection of universal mind consciousness. You understand? It is our soul, it is our body, and our consciousness that will become one with universal mind consciousness. And all of this has been predestined for us. And it comes down to your simple choice with what you want to do. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. But 2032 is a real important date because Western civilization, as we know it, is about to end. Okay? And if if mankind does not move into their heart consciousness and oneness with the universal mind, which is already predestined, and all we have to do is choose, by 2032, China will become the world economic power. That's already in the plan. Okay? That's already in the plan. The Luciferian dark forces has no idea that we can move out of mind consciousness because it's so distracted us with that story that it's telling. And when that happens, this is why the wall is being built, is mankind will be imprisoned. Mankind will be imprisoned. And the purpose of that imprisonment is ultimately, you were mentioning a Holocaust, right? But it will be ultimately to execute mankind. Why? To steal away all human spirits. Because souls right now are either final life experience souls or non-final life experience souls. And if you are a final life experience souls and don't choose to become the universal mind in its 100% consciousness, and Lucifer gets you in this position, he's killed your spirit, right? Which is God. Question? Okay.
But if spirit is eternal, whatever, how you kill it.
It is eternal, but for final life experience souls, right, that can choose to become the universal mind in its totality and don't, right, if this scenario plays out, he would be killing off final life experience souls and killing all spirits. Killing all spirits. Again, all of this is predestined in universal mind consciousness. The essence of this unconditional love is that the universal mind has left it to us to choose the end. If you're following me, what I came back to do was to show you what's available. Right? It's up to you to choose whatever you want to do. Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it. It's all about control. It's all about control, and as sheeple to lead us down that garden path and shut the cage door. That's what it's the Hunger Games type thing. Did I see another hand over here? Yeah.
I still have the same question.
Okay.
How if energy is eternal?
Mm-hmm.
Do you kill the spirit?
That's what Lucifer has been able to understand how to do it. Yes, energy is eternal, and yes, energy has gone back and forth and brought souls in and out of everything. But the end date on all this is December 21st, 2082 at 11:11 GMT. That is when the birthing process has been pre-planned to begin in the Great Thought. And if by that time Lucifer is the only spirit that is alive because he has killed off all final life experience souls because they didn't choose to become the universal mind, he would be victorious. And if that happened, it would lead to a Luciferian birth, which would be stillborn. Okay? That's where that would lead to. But the end date has already been predetermined. The end date has already been predetermined.
That also kind of says that God broken, I don't know how many spirits,
Billions.
then it's not going to complete itself because they're going to be lost in the way.
It would, because what is happening in this universe is also happening to all other universes in their pre-programmed way, right? And as we as individuals become the universal mind in this universe, we also become the universal mind in all other universes. Okay, so it turns on it turns on so it doesn't get lost. It's up to us to choose if it gets lost or not. And that's the essence in the whole game, in the Great Thought of timelessness. It's up to us to determine if the universal mind fetus is born or not. And if it's born with every aspect of unconditional love. And after December 21st, 2082, when reverse velocity takes that broken wine glass and that spilt wine and makes it whole again, and this is a concept you've never heard before, so please listen carefully to this one. Every moment of unconditional love that there ever has been in your life that you're living in every other universal cell, in every other life experience your spirit has ever had in this universe, and in every other universe will be resurrected. So every moment of unconditional love that we've ever had, it's not lost. It will be resurrected and become one as the universal mind's personality and identity when the universal mind fetus is born. And that happens around 10 o'clock in the reverse velocity time frame. But every moment of unconditional love that ever was will be brought back to life because it's already been made in the reverse velocity flow. It's already taken that broken wine glass and spilt wine and made it all whole. Does that make sense? This is a new concept, absolutely. Pardon me? If we so choose it. It's up to us. And that's the essence of the universal mind's unconditional love. Is the universal mind's unconditional love is not arbitrary. It's left it to us, and the word free will came up earlier on, to choose what we feel is right for us. If that makes sense.
My understanding is that Earth is a way that God, Earth or whatever universe you're talking about, of expressing itself in different forms to recognize itself. That's how I put it.
Okay.
And if this is so, no matter what the path, eventually you're going to go into, I don't know, the timing decision.
Right.
Into unconditional love.
Right.
And you're saying that that's not possible if you choose.
I'm saying it is possible. I'm saying it absolutely is possible. And in that time that you're talking about, I'm actually able to flesh it together and put the actual dates and times when that would happen in. Okay? Okay.
You're saying last life souls and new life souls. What's the percentage?
I don't know. At this point in time, I don't know. But I do know that the game plan of how it can roll out will happen one life at a time, and it will be more than enough time to meet that 2032 date for sure. Absolutely. Okay. Yes. Question here.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment because when you said that love will be resurrected, on that because what I was shown is that every seed of love that is planted grows infinitely. It is infinity. So how can
Yes.
you resurrect something that's already infinite?
It happens about at 10 o'clock in the reverse velocity flow. For example, if you can,
You can't kill love.
that's right, and that is what the universal mind's unconditional love is. When it bursts itself at that 12 o'clock, every moment of unconditional love that is not alive today. Are you with me on that? Every.
That's what I'm about because unconditional love can never die.
That's right. It can't,
So
if we so choose it.
how can you resurrect it? Because it never dies.
I'm talking specifically about events, and if you don't mind me being personal, may I be personal, that have happened in your life prior to today. Moments of unconditional love with mom, with dad, with significant other, with children. Those moments of unconditional love, that's what I'm talking about. They are not a past event. They are a present and future event that makes up the personality and identity of the universal mind fetus when it is born.
But if that love grows infinitely, gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as things go on.
Right. I'm saying the same thing. I'm saying exactly the same thing. And this is the confirmation that act happens.
So,
Be-
then it's kind of like it can't be resurrected, but maybe
Brought back to life.
the souls will be aware of it more.
The universal mind, in its timelessness, great thought, has already made it happen. It has already happened. We've just got to choose it to happen by moving off the AM news dial into the FM news dial. But we're saying the same thing, okay? Every moment of universal mind's unconditional love has already happened. Now, I'm going to get really macro on you here, okay? Not only in your life, in this universe, but in your life in every other universe that you are presently living. In every life experience that your spirit has ever had in this universe and in every other universe. It comes together to make up the totality of the universal mind's unconditional love, personality, and identity that will be birthed as the universal mind fetus. And when I had my near-death experience, I was allowed to move to that 12 o'clock birthing point. And I had someone earlier today say it was kind of like when Moses could have seen the promised land, right? That's where I was. And it was an energy of unconditional love that words just can't describe it. It was just so pure. It was so perfect. But it's left to us to choose that. Okay?
You lost me there with Moses because he saw the land, but he couldn't go.
Neither could I.
Oh.
Neither could I. I was showing it. I couldn't go, though.
But when is Moses going to go?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, you're saying that Moses in this reversal thing will have a...
No. I said that somebody earlier today gave that example of when Moses had that experience happen to him as when I had my near-death experience and was led to see the promised land of the universal mind birth.
But
That
does Moses get to go to the promised land?
I don't know. I didn't make up the universal mind. I don't know. Right? I don't know. Yeah.
So at the bottom it says, can you visit choose which option? Are there going to be some people that choose the Luciferian experience and some people that
Absolutely. All non-final life experience souls would choose the Luciferian aspect because they are living in mind conscious, and what I'm seeing, speaking to spirit, does not resonate with them, and they'll accept it as gobbledygook. So yes. Now, I'm going to take that one step further. Okay. a non-final life experience soul that does not, that is not, it's not their time to accept this message, their soul will be left in the Akashic room, and the spirit's next soul will bring it forth, which in all probability would be the final life experience soul that would activate it.
So this is kind of ongoing. If you don't choose it this time because you weren't quite ripe yet. And so
If you were a final life experience soul and didn't choose it, that's when there's a potential problem. But what I was impressed with is all final life experience souls choose it, right? It'll be a now I hope I've got that slide. Okay, this is where we're at right now. That you have a consciousness choice, and right now everyone is living in one of these four quadrants. Either people have time and money, and I want to share a story that I worked with a client about 8 years ago, and I later found out that she's an heiress. And she was an only child. Her parents wanted a male son and got a female son. And it's not a female son, a female daughter, sorry. I've been going 2 hours on this. Anyways, a female daughter. And the parents, primarily the father, she recalls from her earliest recollection of everything that the only reason why she is existing was to maximize the family estate. And I remember when we first started talking, she was really, first of all, when she talked, she's talking very, very light tones like this, and she would only say like maybe 3 or 4 words at a time, right? But she was so upset because she lost millions of dollars on a 90-day investment of the family's estate for whatever, right? Millions of dollars she lost because she wasn't on the ball. And but she later told me that she had read one of my previous books and contacted me that way. And I later found out that she was suicidal. I didn't know this at the time that I was working with her. But when I was able to deliver her into the afterlife, guess who her gatekeeper was? Dad. Exactly. And again, when I work with clients, it's a triad relationship I hear the universal mind speak with me and the client. So that's obviously what that relationship was. But with her, I couldn't hear what was being said to her, but I could hear what she was saying to her father when she met her father. Is everybody following what I'm saying on that? And her father apologized to her. And afterwards, she told me that it was unfair, the pressure that he had put on. This lady is now a world-renowned philanthropist, married and got children. But yeah, she met her father, and the profundity of that whole encounter was that I always, after the sessions I do, I debrief my clients, and we have an audible debriefing. And normally my debriefing with her was 5 minutes, of which she would say 3 words, right? But this session was 45 minutes, and I got in 3 words, right? That the blockage that she had in her throat chakra just completely removed herself, with her father saying, "I'm sorry." And so there are no limits whatsoever with universal mind consciousness. 0 limits. The only limits there are with universal mind consciousness is what you put on them. Okay, that's it. And so I wanted to share that story because some people live in this quadrant where all they have is time and money. She was certainly one of them. Some people live in this quadrant where they have no time and money. I'm talking about busy professionals such as a cardiovascular surgeon or lawyers or people like that are going 7/24. They have no time and money. Others have time and no money, right? But the majority of us live in this quadrant right here, where we are Luciferian victims being reeled into as sheep led to the slaughter, because we're on the treadmill of life where we have no time and no money, right? That's where mankind is at right now. And your conscious choice, if you wouldn't mind just lifting it up, please, is you can choose to eliminate ego and become the egoless power through universal mind oneness, which will unlock your immortality, your agelessness, your wellness, your bliss, give you time, money, and the infinite potentials of everything, because you are the universal mind. We all have that choice to make. It's all up to us with what we do. And this is from my book. This is a slide that shows the ascension process of all of mankind. Right now, this is loud. Isn't that loud? I'm going to stand over here. Sorry about that. I always did anybody ever have in school like the fingers on a chalkboard? And wasn't that like that? Sorry about that. I'm going to stand over here. We all mankind lives right now in this mind consciousness state of today. That's where mankind lives. And we are purposely being led to slaughter by Lucifer through his control of money and the ego chip that we all have. I'm hoping today that the presentation of today can help you to become aware that you can potentially awaken. Okay, you can potentially awaken and not necessarily live in the limitations of mind consciousness, but live into the infinite potentials of heart consciousness thoughts. Remember that universal mind supercomputer that send out a frequency that are inputted into the great thought and bring forth your heart consciousness actions. Okay. I have an academy where our coaches train people to move into that process by what we call the U-mapping process of a universal mind activation process, ultimately pinnacling at that universal mind activation where our spirits are docked again as one as the universal mind. And what that does is it leads to the transfiguration that happens within us. And I'm going to get a little technical here. If I get a little technical, I can tell by the glaze that's going to come over your eyes. But I just want to say what happens during that process. We, as human beings, are made up of trillions of cells. And in every cell is trillions upon trillions of something called atoms. Okay? So everybody kind of with me so far? And atoms have at their very essence something called the strong nuclear force. Okay? And that strong nuclear force is made up of gluons that are like little circles that are making up that strong. I'm getting really, really tiny here, quantum. But the small, and please Google this, the smallest particle known to mankind is something called the D-meson, M-E-S-O-N. And what the D-meson is the D stands for decay. Decay meson. When that D-meson touches a gluon, it kills it off. And all the D-meson does is move around the strong nuclear force of every atom, decaying and killing every gluon of a strong nuclear force, ultimately killing an atom within a cell. Now, the science has said that on average there's 10 to 18 zeros behind it, number of atoms per cell, but cells die or become susceptible to disease because the atoms that make it up are being killed off by these D-mesons. And when we activate the universal mind, as Margaret was saying, when we become the universal mind consciousness, that D-meson is turned off so that no cells, no atoms can age or decay any longer. Okay, and that's the transfiguration process. There's also a legacy component of it that helps you to become monetarily free. And when the first 7 stages are done, it moves us into the state of angeldom. And that state of angeldom is a 24/7 period of bliss. Bottom line, a 24/7 period of bliss. And it is at that time which we become our universal mind angelic form, which is the perfection of the universal mind consciousness. Our spirit already is it, but I'm talking about our soul, I'm talking about our bodies, and I'm talking about our consciousness. That's the steps that will lead to the ascension that begins in 2082 at the birth of the universal mind fetus. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions from that? It's starting to glaze over here. That's not a good sign. Okay. This right here is the peaking process that we do with all of our clients. Truth lies within us all. Truth lies within us all. And when, if I could, thank you very much, if you could just move it down and go to the heart. The first thing that we do is lead individuals to go inside themselves and find their heart consciousness point. When they find their heart consciousness point, we then anchor it to the center of the earth, move them back through the heart consciousness point, through the mind, and out the crown chakra. Just exactly like a near-death experience, except you don't have to die, right? You don't have to die. And when you move through step 10, which is out of the crown chakra, you're moving through the veil of time. And what that veil of time is what science says takes you to the edges of the universe, which would take 46 billion light years, moving at the speed of light. Okay? But that's the process that we do. We take you into the afterlife, stage 11, where you meet your gatekeeper, who helps to lead you ultimately to move into the classroom, which is where I went when I had my near-death experience. Okay, I went beyond a normal afterlife experience of one that goes into the light. I went into the classroom to become one with the universal mind. Okay, and that's where we take all of our clients. Yes.
Personalities or types that interpret the world in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just wondering about the duality of the universal mind. Does it have a duality? It seems like it does have two parts to it.
Well, I have to confess, could you tell me the specifics of what you mean by duality?
Well, I guess the example would be Lucifer and Lucy.
Okay.
But they're all part of the same thing.
Right.
You know, so then you go to the Chinese thing about the dragon chasing the ball across the heaven, and that's supposed to make the whole thing work.
Okay.
It's the great adventure.
Okay.
And then you have the Buddhism thing of the great cart and the single cart.
Okay.
And salvation, or trying to save others in the process of
Right.
trying to
Right.
we're here.
Right. Right.
So it seems like it's interesting to see the ultimate mind. It seems like there's a duality.
Yeah, I would understand now. Now I'm kind of understanding. Yeah, I would say the duality is our choice. Our choice between mind consciousness and the AM dial, the AM news, or listening to the FM station. You know, that would be, and that's the essence of the universal mind's unconditional love. Is it's not arbitrary. It doesn't tell us to.
Sort of like the way of the world, whatever the station way of the world.
Right, right. I said earlier that it's kind of like we're tadpoles swimming upstream against this very, very strong current right now. That's where we're at. But we're now a week unleashed into it, and it's not quite as strong as what it was a week ago. Anyways.
I just think universal mind does not have duality. I think the duality comes in from our lack of awareness, of understanding of the dual mind, such as black and white.
Right, right. That's very good.
Essentially, in universal mind, there is no duality, so to speak, because it's all one. We're all one, and whether we recognize it that we're connected to the one or not,
right?
That's
it. Thank you,
yeah.
thank you, Mark. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
It absolutely incorporates both of the consciousness choices that we have, and that's Yeah, and that's the essence of what always blows me away is the depths of the universal mind's love, is that it didn't force us in to do anything, right? It's up to us to choose it, right? So when we take our clients into the classroom, we take them through the classroom, and we literally take them through the veil of timelessness into the universal mind consciousness. And this is such a wow. This is a place where people just love being, because when they're there, and again, their gatekeeper is leading them, many times they find their DNA thread. Okay, and they move in, they see events that have happened in their life that they always wondered about from that perspective as to why it happened. In the universal mind consciousness, when they're there, it's absolutely infinite. But if we could just move it down again, please, if you would. When you move through the eye is the all-seeing eye that is on both sides, seeing what's happening in time, or the female womb, and seeing what is happening in timelessness, the male aspect. And when we move our clients through that aisle, they move through the veil of timelessness and dock their spirit as one with universal mind in its totality. At that point in time is when the activation takes place. At that point in time, the activation, that's the activation. I just described the activation. That is the activation that leads to the transfiguration, the legacy aspect, and ultimately the bliss. Because on December 21st, 2082, when we ascend as one, as the totality of the universal mind. And what universal mind consciousness does is it perfects and completes universal mind consciousness self, where each of our coaches have 156 souls within them, and that's what perfects the universal mind consciousness. And if anybody is interested in this, I know we don't have enough time, but I'd be more than happy to go into that, and I talk about it in my book as well, the one that's for sale here, the Quest to Perfection. Yeah, I'd be happy to sign that. And if anybody is interested in a free 15-minute assessment that I would do with you over the phone to see if you're ready to become universal mind oneness, just please fill this form out, and then I'll contact you as well.
Any other book
Beyond Consciousness sold out last week in LA. I brought a lot with me, but it's sold out. But you can get it off of my website, which is thegrailacademy.com. And I want to tell you in advance, it is an enigma. And what I mean by that is most of the concepts in that book, because they happened to me during my near-death experience, are foreign to the mind. So my books are books that aren't fiction. They're not like a one-time reading, you get on to another book. They're going to be books that you will pick up over and over again and glean more wisdom as you go through that. Yes.
The last slide, it said monitor times 12, and then it was like, what, minus 12? I can't...
Oh, no, we actually train our 12 therapists. I actually train right now. The first cell is being formed. I have 3 universal mind coaches now. My first level will have 12, and I actually help my clients train their 12. Okay, so when that second layer, this is mentor my 12's 12. So I actually will help my 12 coaches bring their clients to universal mind activation and train them to become universal mind coaches. And that's how this message is going to replicate out through mankind exponentially, one life at a time. And it's very, very important too that during the peaking process, when we work with our clients, is that it's never anything done visually. I work with clients all over the world. I use Skype, and it's just audible. We never ever violate anybody's boundaries with anything visible. Okay, and it's also for our protection as well that we don't get any entities on us as well. And how do you unleash your infinite potential? You choose to become the universal mind. It's that simple. That's the essence of the universal mind's unconditional love. And it's up to you to do whatever you want to do. Because whatever you do is going to be right for you.
After somebody dies, I read that you have the choice to either reincarnate, not to reincarnate. If you reincarnate, there's supposed to be something called the Council of Elders that advises you to do this, that.
Right.
Why don't they just tell you to choose to become the universal mind at that time?
That's a good question. Again, I didn't design the universal mind. I didn't design the universal. I'm not. Remember that each soul is an individual life experience that comes in with a purpose, and all previous souls have completed their life purpose for all final life experience souls. And I'm going to get a little technical here, but for all final life experience souls, because the Lucifer is the master of deception, but all spirits' final life experience souls have gone through the traumas that they've gone through so that Lucifer cannot hold that out against somebody from becoming, as a final life experience soul, to decide to become a final life experience soul.
Okay, if you didn't have the chainsaw accident,
Yes.
then, and you didn't know any of this stuff, how long, well, no, not how long does it take, but what's going to help people who don't have the near-death experiences to achieve all this?
Go inside. Go inside and listen to your heart consciousness. Find that FM channel. Listen to the communication that's coming to you from source that only resonates with your heart consciousness. When you listen to that and follow it, it'll never lead you wrong.
Would getting past life regression help in any way?
Not with what I'm talking about, no. No. Life regression, my feel for that is that life regression could help you to maybe understand an aspect of who you were in a previous life experience that could help you to make the choice. You know, that may be a possible way, but the past is no indicator of the future. And remember, it's already been done, right? The end has already been done. The end already exists. The end already exists. It's just up to us to choose it, to make it happen. And I hope if you are a final life experience souls that you felt a little bit of an impression from within, a resonating of within, because I've been speaking to your spirit.
In terms of life purpose, it sounds like we can all relax because if we don't feel we're on purpose, it sounds like we are on purpose because it has been preordained. Am I understanding that correctly?
If you are a non-final life experience soul, yes. Because you're going to live in mind consciousness. You're going to send out that frequency and it's going to bring forth mind consciousness action. So yes, if you are a non-final life experience soul and everything I'm saying to you is gobbledygook, yes, it doesn't matter. Because you're going to stay there and, you know, that's where you're going to be led. But if you are a final life experience soul and you don't listen to what you're being, ultimately you will listen. Maybe you're going to need a near-death experience to be able to listen to it, like me, right? But for those of you who don't want to have a near-death experience like me and are being resonated to move in this direction, you're going to choose to do it so. But I don't exactly know how many chances a final life experience soul is going to have to make the choice, right? I do know that there are significant positive reasons for a person to do it as soon as possible, you know, to reduce pain that they have now, to start to reverse the aging process, to unlock all of their infinite potentials, which we all can do. But it's up to us to choose, if you are a final life experience soul, to move from your mind consciousness to your heart consciousness.
Shown the Big Bang and the birth of the universal mind fetus, will that be as magnificent as the Big Bang?
Was the birth, I want to make sure I have your question, was the birth of the universal mind, the conception of the universal mind fetus as grand as the Big Bang? Is that? Because they're the same event.
Okay.
They're the same event. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So, I don't want to put a judgment on this, but I've been feeling extremely hopeful for quite a while now because I see a growth at an exponential rate of awareness of the extortion of the Luciferian agenda. And because of that, I'm telling myself with hopefulness that I'm seeing light win over darkness. And that might be an oversimplification, but I have a very positive view of the future.
Absolutely. That's great. And how do you see that positive view and future manifesting in you? Okay, you've got the picture of what's going on.
Yeah.
Now, how do you make it manifest and become you?
I strive as much as possible every day to come from a place of unconditional love and to spread goodness and kindness and compassion and empathy in every interaction I have with everyone.
Good. And when you go inside with that, are you comfortable where that end result brings you to? Or do you feel that do you feel there is more there?
I don't know how to answer that. I don't know.
Go inside. The answer lies within. The answer lies within. You go inside and you ask that question. You go inside. You meditate?
Not effectively, no.
Okay, that I'll call you. I'll call you and we'll set up a 15-minute session and I will be able to help you to determine where you're at with that, right? Because people are normally at one or two states. Either they're ready for it or they're not ready for it. And that doesn't mean that you won't be ready for it. It just means that right now you're not ready for it. Does that make sense?
No, but I'll think about it.
Go inside. Go inside. The truth is inside. Okay. Yes.
I wonder, I don't know how this is going to come across to everyone, but what about people like me who, okay, what do you do if, like me, I just can't handle negative news and I just don't listen to it. I'm not in the real world. It just puts a bummer on my day, and I'm like, why do I want to put myself in a bummer of a day when I could go live in my la happy world? And that's not reality either, because I got to be part of the world, but I just can't handle the news. I can't handle being around people who want to talk about it, and I just go run and hide.
It's energy sucking, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd rather.
It's absolutely energy sucking.
And
that's the AM news station.
And see, then I go to nature and I just sit under a tree, exactly. And I'm happy as could be. I'm like, tree, I happily ever after here, But is that reality?
Yes. The world is waking up. The world is waking up in a profound way all over the world. France has demonstrated it through a mind consciousness revolution perspective, which the Luciferian forces are waiting to have happen because they're going to quash it. They're going to destroy it. They're going to. There's already been 1,800 convictions in France. Nobody is innocent in the Yellow Vest movement, right? No matter what they were, okay, because of the way the system, the justice system, and life is set up. Life is set up to be flowing at us like a creek, just overwhelmingly moving against us, and we're that tadpole trying to survive and swim upstream. Right?
So we're becoming the new norm. Like
people are awakening right now all over the world. Who said that earlier on? Yeah, people are awakening all over the world right now. Exactly. They're not listening to news, but that truth comes from within.
Yeah, I've shut the news off back in the 90s. I just
great.
Even before
that's why your spirit is running.
Yeah.
Your spirit is running.
I just feel like a lost puppy. I couldn't wait to come today to be around like-minded souls.
So, I know you have this room for a certain time, and I need to close off. Does anybody have any other questions that, Gary?
I'm still confused about this reversal velocity. When does
Right.
that kick in?
Well, it started to develop itself. Now, think of forward velocity starting at the conception of time.
Right.
Okay. At the same time, reverse velocity was happening.
Okay.
And what is reverse velocity? The end of reverse velocity is the wine glass being whole and the wine in the wine glass. It's already happened. Okay, right now it is reaching out. And again, I had a client just this week who actually saw this in the work that I did. He actually was able to see light above people, and it was on the Ascension panel that he saw this at the expo. And when we had our time, what I was impressed with was that he had a hand that was waving at the end of that light, reaching out for the reverse velocity flow. Okay, so reverse velocity flow is coming into mankind right now. It is coming into mankind. It is reaching down to that spilt wine and that broken wine glass and making it all whole, because that flow already exists. But it's up to us to choose it. If that makes sense. Pardon me? So if everybody wouldn't mind filling this out, and if you want a free 15-minute assessment, I'd be more than happy to do that with you. And if you want, I'd be more than happy to sign a book for you as well. But the Quest is a real simple read. It's not like my previous books that have been enigmas. So I think you'll enjoy it.
Let's have a big hand for JC.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming here.
Oh, thank you very much.
And I just wanted to tell everybody,